Titans, Sean O'Loughlin, the captain from Wigan Warriors, Mark Percival of St Helens, Scott Taylor from Hull FC, Alex Walmsley of St Helens as well, Callum Watkins from Leeds Rhinos, Elliot Whitehead from Canberra Raiders, Gareth Woodard of the St George Illawarra Dragons, and George Williams of Wigan Warriors. So, I don't need to say what stands out for you in the squad, Mark, but what stands out for you in this squad?
Well, let's talk about the things that are more innocent things to talk about first of all, I suppose. Obviously, there's only, 12 Super League players in the side,
yep.
So not that many sides massively affected by this, but you will obviously see within that 3 players from Castleford, key players there.
Yeah.
The 2 players from Wigan and from St Helens are as central to everything that those teams have been doing well this year as anyone, really. And then the 2 players from Leeds, well, Leeds have got issues in the backs, haven't they, at the moment, with injuries and depth questions and that sort of thing, so that might affect them. Then once you move on from that, I think there's a number of surprises, not obviously no, we jumped to the 2 Aussies that are in the side. I have no objection with their selection in terms of eligibility criteria, because they meet all the criteria that's set out. So that's fine in my book. I don't think Chris McQueen is playing well enough, or has played well enough for 2 or 3 seasons to be getting rep honours, in my opinion. And in Chris Hyington, you got a player who's very much at the back end of his career, and this shows me that Wayne Bennett doesn't really care about English Rugby League or England Rugby League. He cares, in the grand scheme of things, he cares about a player who probably isn't going to be a starter, probably isn't going to be the difference between us winning a World Cup and finishing in the semi-finals of a World Cup, yet he's going to select him over a possibly younger product of rugby league, like a Joe Greenwood, is the name that I was expecting to see on the sheet rather than him, or maybe someone like a Kyle Amor who's been doing well in the Super League, or something like that.
I was expecting to see a Westham in there or someone like that.
That's another good shout. He's been outstanding when he's played in a not outstanding Warrington side. He's been outstanding. Yeah,
for me. Look, I think we all knew really in our heart of hearts that Wayne Bennett wasn't coming in to be a progressive coach to develop England Rugby League as a concept. What he was coming in to do was to win a World Cup. And
if we win the World Cup,
I'm proving I was wrong. And if we win a World Cup, it's all forgiven and all forgotten, because winning a World Cup will probably do England Rugby League a lot of good, won't it? So, in some respects, it's kind of, it's a moot point. My opinions on eligibility and where people play and where they should be allowed to play are sort of well documented, and my going off on a tangent about that now is going to serve no purpose. We live in a world where these eligibility rules apply, and look, the Australians maximise them, and as do the Kiwis, as do every other nation. So we're only playing by the same rules as everyone else. I've got no problem with it. But I agree with you. I don't think Chris McQueen deserves to be in the squad based on performance, regardless.
Ahead of Liam Farrell.
Exactly. Well, this is the other point I want to get to. Okay, I also think that we need to keep in mind that this test match is happening under some very specific circumstances with some very specific caveats attached to it, i.e. when I can't recall a time when an England coach has said, well, I'm only going to pick a certain number of players from any club. So he's attached that caveat to it. It's also a pre-season friendly where we're flying literally to the other side of the world to participate. Now, there are some bonuses to be gleaned from that in terms of playing in Australia, getting the players used to being in that environment,
getting them together,
enjoying all that. Exactly. And it's also a bit of an audition for players like McQueen and Hyington, who might be on the periphery of Wayne Bennett's thinking more broadly. So I don't think it's necessarily a slap in the face for someone like a Liam Farrell. I think it's a work in progress. It's almost a train-on squad in some respects. It's a work-in-progress squad where he's going to try different things against the Samoas to see how different combinations and different people who might be on the peripheries work. People like the 2 young lads that were called up into the squad. So you've got McMeekin and Walmsley coming in, who are both having exceptional seasons.
Oh yeah,
and it's an opportunity for those 2 boys to cement a place in the pack as well, because it's listen, the England pack is a difficult place to find work. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of big names in there, and there's a lot of high performers. So
I have no concern with those selections at all. Those two that you mentioned.
No, right. And I think again, it's more of an audition for those two lads to cement a place in the bigger squad come the World Cup. So I'm not keen to kind of chuck baby out with the bathwater in this one and go, oh, it's just an Aussie picking Aussies, and we always knew this would happen. I actually think that this is, broader thinking from Wayne Bennett, and let's see how these lads get on, and let's see how the guys who are given an opportunity to come into the England squad cope with that, because there's a lot of lads staying behind in England. You never know. He could have been on the blow at Wayne Bennett to Sean Wayne, and said, look, I'm not going to take, who can I take? Let's talk about who you'd like me to take, where people are at. And maybe Wayne Bennett said, look, Sean Wayne said, look, you do me a favour if you don't take Liam. All the way around the world, given the fact that he's only really coming back from, different knocks and injuries, and we want to keep him. Let's look after him. Let's nurture the guy. I can
understand that more with Joe Burgess, who's been in and out of the side.
Yeah,
but I take your point to an extent. I don't think Wayne Bennett sees what everyone who listens to this show and everyone who watches Liam Farrell regularly, who watched him play in the game that he did get given last year. Okay, wasn't it? He wasn't like the big games. But why didn't he trust him in the big games? What's he not shown him when he was man of the match in the grand final last year? Everyone knows how much I love Liam Farrell. He's probably my favourite player in the Wigan squad nowadays. But I'm going to try and look at this objectively, if I can. He won the. You
let me know when that's going to start.
He won the man of the match in the grand final last year with an outstanding performance. He was faultless almost when he did play for England, but he wasn't given enough opportunity. Maybe this season so far, he got 137 metres in the World Club Challenge. He doubled what Chris Hyington put up in the same game.
Chris Hyington had a hangover.
All I'm saying is, he had an impressive game against the Australian champions, who are in the top four as well, or just out probably after this weekend's games. But in 2017, okay, let's compare him to Chris McQueen. So Liam Farrell has played.
Look, it's a friendly. He'll still be in the squad,
but he won't be in the squad. This is my worry, because when you think there's Joe Greenwood, there's John Bateman, and there's Ben Curry, and I'm not saying any of those people don't deserve to be in the squad as well, but Liam Farrell right now is the best second rower playing in our competition, maybe on par with Mike McMeekin, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Liam Farrell in 8 games this season has scored 3 tries, 1 try assist, 4 clean breaks, so they're reasonable attacking stats for a second rower. 156 metres per game at 8.5 metres per carry. 95% tackling success, which isn't as best as it's been in his career. Only 11 missed tackles though so far this season. Okay. Chris McQueen in 6 performances has missed 13 tackles, so going at a worse rate there. He's also made more errors but given away less penalties than Farrell, so balance off there. 71 metres per game. He's only scored 1 try. His best game, his only game where he went over 100 metres, was in the centres. I'd be surprised if he got played in the centres, but maybe he's been picked if he thinks Percival gets off the plane and isn't up to playing it. So maybe he's thinking about putting him in the centres. But God, I don't want to see him get ripped apart by a far more mobile Joey Leilua, who's going to be playing up against that left centre position.
Yeah.
I'd rather I don't know, Percival have a go and get out-strengthed than McQueen have a go and get embarrassed.
I'd rather stick Shenton in against him.
Shenton in the squad, is he? But yeah, that was his best game of the season, and all of his other games have been average.
Yeah, I completely agree with your point. I look, if I was picking the England squad to go to the World Cup, Farrell would be in it for me. But I go back to what I was saying earlier. I think this is I don't want to use the word audition, but this is a rough edges squad.
I mean, Hyington's one of your boys, so I think he's actually playing, if anything, better this year than he played last year, and I think his recent form over the last month or so has been exceptional for the Sharks. So I've got no problem with selection, but I mean, you watch him more than I watch him, I guess.
Look, I don't like Aussies being in England rugby league shirts. That's the problem I have. It's like you said, he's coming in to do a job. Maybe there's more broad stuff going on. Maybe we're not giving Mr. Happy Pants enough credit. Maybe he's thinking more broadly in terms of we'll give him a run out, we'll give him an audition. He'll be a squad player if he does well and if he stays fit. And age is going to be a factor for him in staying fit. But also, there's a lot of young lads named in that squad. Maybe a couple of older, more experienced Aussie heads in and around the sheds and doing their part helps settle that group into the culture. There's a lot of things that you can draw on. I hope that's Wayne Bennett's thinking, and he does think that way. He's not stupid, is he?
Yeah, well,
do you know what I mean?
We must think he's going all out for the win. There's no backup hooker picked, but that's an interesting call. But not a shocking one.
No.
And then for, obviously, George Burgess, I don't know if he would have been picked or not. His form hasn't been great, but also he's out of a ban, isn't he? So that might be part of the problem there. I was a little bit surprised Hall is on this plane because he's obviously going to be on the plane at the end of the year. Yeah. He's played 31 times, he's scored 31 tries. He doesn't need to put the England shirt on in this game to prove anything to anyone.
No.
Really. And maybe there's an element of conserve him a little bit as well because he's on the older end of things. You had an option to put someone like Burgess, Eden or Johnston in the squad to see whether one of those can jump out of the pack to be the third winger on the plane. At the moment you'd think Burgess is at the front of that queue, and also with the sort of form him and Eden and Johnson have been in, you'd think they're ahead of Hall on the form stakes, but you don't take Ryan Hall out when he's proven what he's proven over so many years. And I've got no objection with him playing for England in the World Cup. I thought they would have auditioned the third winger potentially. But that was the only other surprise for me. How about how they're going to line up? If you had any thoughts about that, because I've jotted down what I think my 1 to 17 will be.
Go on, give us your 1 to 17 and I'll see if I differ.
So obviously Hardacre will be your fullback. On the wings you'll have McGilvery and Hall in the centres. You would have Watkins and Percival. I would be picking.
I'd stay with that.
In the halves, I'd be starting with Widdop and Gale. For the purpose of, I think Williams is out of those three is the only one that's going to offer any explosion off the bench. So I'd have him on the bench because I want to see all three in this game. Someone asked us a question actually on Twitter today, which we're getting round to in a roundabout way of answering these questions that people sent through. Who would you pick? That's how I would go with it. I'd make all three of them play in the game, and you've got an opportunity to switch up if it's not going right with Gale or with Widdop, and you've got an option if you need to bring someone on who can play at dummy half as well a little bit in George Williams, because the guy's dynamite with the ball in hand. Then in the front row, obviously Hodgson's going to be your starting hooker. I would start with Sam Burgess and James Graham in the prop positions. My interchange props would be Chris Hill and Alex Walmsley. I would then have the second row of McMeekan and Whitehead, and I would have Sean O'Loughlin starting at loose forward. My last bench spot will go to Chris Hangington. I would not be playing Tom Burgess, Chris McQueen or Scott Taylor. Right,
here's where we go different. I put McQueen in and start him in the second row, because why the fuck have we called him up if we're not going to play him and give him a run out? If I'm picking it, I'm trying to think out of,
I get the thought process, but I don't get the thought process to put him in the squad in the first place.
I agree.
So I hope he fucking gets his head right before then.
But he's in the squad, so put the boy out there, and if he has an absolute blinder and a barnstormer, then he's puts himself in the equation. If he has a shitter, as we anticipate he will do, based on his form so far this season, then que sera, sera. I'm not asked about losing a game to Samoa if it benefits us going into the World Cup in terms of what we learn about the fringes of this squad. So I think, Higginton, look, if it were for Sean O'Loughlin, I'd almost say start Higginton as well and chuck him in at loose and let's fucking run all three of them out and see how they do.
Locker's an 80-minute player now.
No, Higginton's going to get his opportunity, isn't he?
That'll work out there well.
Exactly. But other than that, no, I think that's basically the squad I would go for. Who did you start at hooker? Burgess and Graham?
In the prop?
No, Burgess and... prop, yeah, Burgess and
Sam Burgess and Graham. I'd have Hill on the bench.
Yeah, Hill for the second 20. Yeah, that's about the same for me.
To be honest, that's a difficult call because you've got...
You get sort of the same. You get the impact from Chris Hill, but you get the impact and ball play from Graham. So it's all much of a muchness. But if you're going to bring Chris McQueen in, fucking start the cunt and let's see how he goes.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Next piece of news then. Hull FC halfback Albert Kelly has extended his deal until the end of next season after the Super League side activated a clause in his contract. The 26-year-old Australian joined FC in November from rivals Hull KR. I want us to be competitive and to be challenging for all 3 pieces of silverware on offer. He said, it was a no-brainer to extend my contract here. I like to think I've been playing well recently and I'm in a happy place. He certainly has been playing well, hasn't he?
Definitely, and it's good for them to secure him for another year. I think it sounds just like it was a clause in the contract that they could activate at any time, so it's not really a proper extension in the way it's been sold, I don't think.
No.
So what they need to be working on now is a proper extension and working towards this guy being a long-term player, because he's electric.